Recording. All yours.
All righty. Well, welcome everybody. Gosh, this is so exciting to have everybody here together, and I think we're going to leave the lines open. Well, you want to do a little audio check to see that we can add? I'd love that we could just kind of have a conversation, and I don't
unmuted.
They're open.
Muted?
They're muted. They're open.
Okay. Well, I would love that we could have more of a conversation than me talking all the time, and I will ask then that you would raise your hand so that I can kind of call on you, but it will be easier for you to unmute yourself if you're muted and then just speak. I think we had a pretty good natural conversation here, but if you're talking in the background, then I can hear you, and then we will have to mute everybody. So try to keep your background noises. Well, let's see here. We can kind of move ahead to the next slide. And this is, again, the women. And is there anybody who would like to say hello that didn't have a chance to? We tried to call on everybody as they logged in. Anybody feel like you need to have a little test of the system? Did we hear from you?
Yes, did. I said
okay.
Hi.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
And yes? You go? Okay. Anybody else want to say hi that didn't? Okay, well, I think we're...
Can you hear us over at FDU under Elizabeth Perietti's name?
Yes? Okay, but now we have some trouble.
Line.
They have somebody has their hold music on.
Okay. Okay, have signs are muted.
Yeah, that's we just keep them muted, Diane, so we can keep moving.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, so here's some reminders about the participation. We're going to go then with all the lines muted. You will raise your hand when you want to ask a question, or we have open responses. So we'll kind of go with that. We're going to do a couple of polling questions today, and to do that, you're going to use your mouse and click on the answers. And we're going to visualize success here, but if you need Wilson's number, there it is. And I'm assuming that everybody has the slide set and, all this information sitting in front of them, because that was posted in the document section. Well, if we were in the classroom together, I would probably be talking to the people as they came in and, get kind of caught up with everybody, and people would be talking to each other. But so we're here on a webinar, we're going to do the same kind of thing, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. And I'm going to call this our gathering time. And we're going to start, like I like to always start my classes, with good news. So I'm going to ask who has good news to share, and good news could be present an abstract that's been submitted for presentation has been accepted, somebody who's had a dissertation approved, passed a test, been to a conference and presented, all of interesting things. So,
hello. I can't get into this. I'm sitting at the greeting screen.
Okay.
It's Mary McDermott. I've been trying to get in for 15 minutes, and I finally got as far as the greeting screen.
Sorry, Mary. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interject here. Marianne, could you call me on my desk phone, 609-627-5951.
609 what?
627-5951.
5951?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to continue, yeah. So I'm kind of looking for some hands raised. I'm wondering what good news has happened to you since we met last. Does anybody have anything exciting that they could share with us? Okay, Mary Kaminsky. All righty. Now, let me see, Mary. I got to get you unmuted here so you can talk. All right, go.
I recently attended a 2-day conference at Penn Medicine regarding therapeutic hypothermia, which is an incredibly exciting intervention for very clinical, but it's for postcodes, and it was very, very exciting, and I'm hoping to be, what they call us? Well, to be a messenger of that modality in New Jersey. And
okay, that's exciting and a good example of what one of the roles of the educator is. So thank you for sharing, and that sounds good. I'm going to unmute you, or I'll say. And who else has something they'd like to share? Anybody have been to a conference or has good news that they would like to have us set with you? I'll give you some news on my end here then. Joan Perks, who is one of the faculty at here, since she can't come, as she's had an abstract accept conference there in New Jersey, and she's going to be presenting this afternoon. So we're excited for her. Myself was at the Sigma Theta conference that was on the beginning of this week. I noticed that Tony Forrester was there because he's part of the Sigma Theta Tau leadership that they're offering. It's a web-based leadership development program, so he was active there. Elaine Fittrick from FDU was there, and she came up and said hi to me, and she had some of her students from FDU, so that was fun to see them. And I ran into Diane Skiba and Pam Jeffries, who were both there, and they both said to say hello to all of you. They were really impressed with everything that they were able to when they were there, and Diane Skiba particularly says hi to Wilson and thanks him for helping with all of her slides. So that's news on my end. Does anybody else? Oh, Dr. Campbell, let me see if I can unmute you. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Campbell.
Hi, Ann. Hi, everybody. Particularly for those of you who will be teachers, this is very good news if you're in the teaching business. Our program at Kane, both programs, the BSN and the MSN, we had our reaccreditation site visit last week, and we have been recommended for full reaccreditation for programs. So that's like a relief, and we can go on and do the things that we really want to do.
Congratulations, and do know that we're all clapping for you because that's a huge, huge an accomplishment. So that's definitely worth celebrating. Again, that's another part of the faculty role is to prepare these reports for accreditation, and as soon as you finish one, we're on to the next one. So congratulations. Dr. Campbell, I'm going to unmute you now. Or mute. Okay. Anybody else?
Dr. Louie?
See, I got to find her on my list here.
Kim.
Yeah, I just have to scroll down here and I'll get to her. There. Okay. Hi, Dr. Louie. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you. Hi, Diane. We also were visited by CCNE 2 weeks ago for the undergraduate program, and from the exit report, we also seem to be, will also get a full tenure, but that is usually a decision of the commission, which probably will be notified. It's a stressful process, but a rewarding process nonetheless.
Okay. Well, we're looking for you too, because again, this is a lot of hard work goes into these, and I know both of were busy during the time we were together in Princeton, so
yes.
Your hard work paid off. So thanks for sharing.
Welcome.
Put you back on mute.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I need to share. Okay, we'll do this again every time we have class, and soon we'll be hearing from some of the students about articles that they're writing and getting submitted, and when we have a pass of a quality, I hear that. We'll be celebrating graduation, so a lot of good things will be coming up. Okay, we head here to announcements, and I have just a little bit of a list here, and let's do it on the same page. I think I know that all the students and scholars have logged in. A couple of you did not get your introductions made, so to be sure that everybody go to that introduction forum and gives us information, because that's where I'll go back to kind of link the names and remember key things about you. I imagine others and others as well. So be sure that you have introduced yourself in that form. Also, know that we've been adding new people to the to our collaborative learning community, and as they are added, you will get an email from them to say that they've been added, and some more faculty, because we really want to have, the mentors and the faculty that are working with the students to be there, and also have some of the program evaluators and the people from the marketing department. So we're getting a nice collaborative community going there. To talk a little bit about the collaborative, the online part of the collaborative learning community, I added a question forum, and if something comes up that you want to ask a question about, put it in there, and I or whoever can answer it first will do that. And particularly this will be helpful if we run out of time here at the end and something is still on your mind. So please, feel free to use that. I added the research forum like we discussed, and some of you have posted, and anybody else, because this is, again, a great network, particularly as you move forth and you want us to be, one thing I like to do, if I know somebody's working on a project, when I'm reading my nursing journals, I'll be glad to, flag it and forward it to you. So keep your needs known to us. We have the resources section added to, and one thing I probably need to mention that I kind of forgot to say, back at the Sigma Theta Tau conference, and a couple of my colleagues presented a session on becoming a nurse educator, and we showed the new Johnson & Johnson video that's called Shaping the Minds That Save the Lives. So it's a nice little recruitment video, and I posted a link in that resources document because it is from a YouTube video, so you all can have access to it. It's a really nice recruitment video, and everybody at Sigma is very appreciative of Johnson & Johnson for doing that and sharing it with us. I think those are my announcements. Now we'll tie things together, and then I'm going to ask if anybody has a question, and I'll so you can, if something's not clear at the moment, after we tie things together, let me know, and we'll go from there. So kind of thinking about tying things together, we're trying to have a little sequence here of how these sets come together. And last time we were, for session 1, when we were at the foundation, it was all about you, the nurse educator. So we started with focus on the educator role and getting that started for everybody. But now we're going to move and talk about the focus on the students. And these next 2 sessions are going to be about, how to assess the students, how to understand their needs, and all the things that we really need to know about students before we get started. And we're hoping that these sessions have some link and connection, too, with the courses and things you're doing, in your educational programs. But we know, of course, that everybody's on a different time schedule, but some sessions may be tips for things that are going to come, or another way of looking at things that you've already learned. So we want to keep the links going and tie things together. Well, it's our T for the gathering. Now let's see if there's anything that's not clear, or anybody needs to ask a question or let us know what we need. And Dr. Louie, I still see one of your questions there. Do you have a question, or put your hand down? Thank you. Okay. Anybody have questions? Anything that's not at the moment? Okay, then we'll move ahead, and we'll say that the next thing that is, we are expecting success. And there is, I think, ever a classroom that we don't go into these days that isn't involved in some kind of technology, and everybody prepares and gets ready. And the thing that we do is expect success. So I'm visualizing success for our adventure today. And now I'm hoping that everybody's in place and is ready to learn. So I'm ready to get going if you are. Okay, and here are agenda for today. And we're going to, as I said, focus on some of the learning needs of students and how to assess them. And probably what I would most love that we end up with today is some practical strategies for working with the students in the classroom. And I'm going to emphasize the word practical because we can do many, many things, but they're going to be maybe too time-consuming, too expensive, not getting a good bang for our buck. So we want to do all the quick things we can do that are practical. And we're going to talk a little bit about resources for students and faculty. And when we come to those sections, I'm going to ask you to share the things that you have on your campus, because it will help us all understand how many resources we can hand, how helpful they can be to the students. So here are the many ways that students are different. I was cleaning out my basement this summer and ran across the last photo of the very first class that I taught. It was at a diploma program here in Indianapolis, a Catholic hospital. All of the students were 21. They were all white. They all had little, the same little flips, and they basically were from the same religion. They were all mostly Catholic. They lived in dorms, so we didn't, their culture was, very similar, and they came from the same middle-class background. I'm fast-forwarding to the students that I'm working with today. And I know that we have students of all ages, different races, different genders. Both class didn't have a single male in it. I don't know they ever did. And but certainly pay much more attention to learning styles and the generation that our students come from. And now we have to even ask what kind of technical skills they have. So we are faced with another different classroom. So it's really going to be helpful to us to have an understanding of who our students are and how we can best create an environment that's going to be productive for their learning. Some things to think about. We need to understand these learning needs, and while we really do focus on the student and think about them in the classroom, but I sometimes wonder, how do we really think about the students when we're looking at the curriculums and the courses and kind of the bigger picture view of how these how our approach threads throughout the curriculum. And those of you that just did program reviews or who are upcoming with program reviews, you've been looking at big picture kinds of things, and at these learning needs across the curriculum is, a great approach there. And, all the kinds of things that we're doing with planning for the students, orienting them and so on, and then also to be able to help the students themselves understand what learning needs are and how they can help and be empowered to help address them. And I'm going to appear to this next slide. I'm working with a federal student who's looking at of intent to use learning style information. But as I was looking at, she's looking at the variables, I looked at these variables and I realized these are the same words that are on the slide that was previous, all these things that we're looking at. And actually, one of the more powerful reasons to look at these learning needs of the students, they do in fact make a difference on various things. And as we're conducting our research and gathering our evidence about best practices, it's going to be helpful to us to know in which ways these student variables and student needs are having an impact on how they can learn. And actually, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the thing. Two studies that I just worked with students that were picking up, age was the one variable that popped out. The older students in one study were much more self-related. They used self-regulatory learning strategies more, and they were trying to look at the differences between graded students and the students. It was the age, and another one found that the students older were much more able to be engaged. So there we have it. We need to be looking at quite a few of these variables and how they're impacting the learning, and soon we're probably going to get our research to the point where we can look at how we can intervene. Okay, so we'll start with probably one that's pretty easy to understand, and that's learning styles preferences. And we all have them, and we define learning styles preferences as that these are the ways that people prefer to receive and to process information. And you probably are familiar with these, and I really hope that everybody had a chance to do one of those online surveys that I gave you some links for. And I think most of these are pretty self-explanatory, and we're going to talk about them a little bit more. We'll point out the issue of concrete versus abstract, because some of those surveys that we have links for don't really measure that so well. But in my experience of working with students, this is the one learning style where I understand if the students are coming from a concrete or abstract view of the world, and where you are coming from the concrete and abstract view of the world. Because not only are we trying to, let me back up here, in order to help the students learn, we ourselves have to know what our learning style preferences are. And I will say I'm an abstract person, so I would tend to give directions to students, write a short paper. Well, the student who is concrete, that's not good enough, and they're going to be the one that's going to raise their hand and say, well, how many pages do you want? And it's not because they want so much to know, don't write too many pages. It's that they need that kind of information to be able to proceed with the assignment. So there's an example of how concrete versus abstract. And the same, some of these learning styles, once we know ours, we can see them even in colleagues, and when we're working together in committees and so on, these, kind of play, and we can better to understand that people are coming from a different viewpoint, not that they're trying to cause trouble or give us grief. So kind of that. Here the have group versus study alone, and that comes up because now we do a lot of group work in class, and some students, it's a learning style preference that they just simply do not like working in groups and they prefer to work alone. And another one that the teacher, the preference for having a teacher present versus being self-directed, that doesn't come in all of the inventories, but the one that it's important to consider that, because some students really need much more direction than others, and like to have the student with them when they're studying. They really kind of flounder when they're left to their own devices, and we see a lot of that in distance education environments where we're not physically present with the student at all times. So we'll kind of keep that in mind. Well, looking at how to assess these, lots of different instruments, and I hope you got out and could see these. And when we pause here for a question, for questions and comments, you can ask if there's any of these that you want to further information on. They're easy to find, but just by a quick Google search. But here are some issues to think about when we're using these instruments. The reliability and validity of them is really leaves something to be desired. So we're not always wanting to on them to be absolutely accurate. And also some of these are expensive. Let me back up to one more point there on how to assess, because what I am seeing is that many schools now are approaching their students and asking them to use some rather global admission assessment instruments. HI is one that comes to mind, and when we open the lines in a minute, we'll see if anybody's using those. But they bundle several things together. One is critical thinking assessment and a couple of things, but embedded in them is a learning styles preference assessment. So you want to kind of poke around and see if your students, in fact, are taking some of these, and you could use those as a basis for working with the students in your class. So some of these are pretty easy to use. The ones that are free on the web are kind of fun. Some of them you have to give your email, so you want to be cautious with that, as I was with you. Okay, there's kind of the overview of learning styles, preferences, and some of this I think is probably somewhat intuitive. So here is that you can be thinking about using this information once it's gathered. Certainly it needs to go into the hands of the students, and they need to understand how to prefer to learn and what strategies they can use. The issue of style flex comes up. That means, should we try to have every student use their preferred learning style at all times and go over backwards to help them, or they go over backwards to be sure that they can working in their preferred style, or should we help them learn to flex and learn to work when the style that isn't their preferred mode is there? I think the literature kind of promotes the notion of style flex, and the styles do change over time too. They're not just fixed in stone. But probably in the bottom line, we're looking at providing options. Okay, so we're going to do a poll, and we're going to ask each of you to identify what's your preferred learning style, and I'm going to open the poll here in a minute. But you look at this and kind of decide, and if you're working with 2 or 3 of you there together, only one of you can answer, so whoever's going to be the one that's going to answer, be ready to be up here at the computer with your mouse. Okay, I'm going to put the poll question up, and I'm going to do that, Wilson, by pushing on the polling. All righty, here we go. And everybody should be able to see this.
Actually, Diane, you have to click on the open poll button.
Oh, okay, thank you. Which is under polling.
Very bottom, the bottom right says open poll.
I got it. Thank you so much. Okay, here we go. So we're opening the poll. You step to the mouse and give us your best shot here. And it looks like we have 20 of you have finished, or 7. We're getting there. And count down when I get up to about 40, I'm going to close it. So I'll give a minute here to do it, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like.
Hey, while we're waiting, we have a quick question from Minnie Campbell.
Yes. Go ahead, Minnie.
Can you hear her, please?
Oh, now I just see the poll. I don't see the okay down the bottom. Down computer.
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's see if I can.
Or Wilson.
I'll call her in just a minute, Nick, because I don't want to mess up this screen.
No problem.
Oh, it looks like we.
Diane, just close the poll, and then you can push out the results.
Okay, I will. I think it looks like everybody's finished. 43. Close it. So here we go. All right. So now I need to which means to share with the attendees.
Click on poll results and click on apply.
Got it. Okay, everybody see that? I'm assuming you can. And here.
Let me unmute the line just to make sure that everyone can see it.
Okay. Okay. If not,
I can see it.
okay. If anybody cannot, let me know.
Still muted, Wilson.
Can everyone see the poll results?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to leave that there, and I'm going to go to the next and we're going to do a little activity here to kind of keep you engaged. It's a little mini case study, and you can you just jot down some ideas. Now, looking at this is the group of that we have here, where we have 42% of this group are visual learners, and a few of you are like to prefer getting information reading. Some of you are kinesthetic. The notion alone in group is not just so terribly strong here for anybody. But take a look at this, jot some ideas, and then I'm going to ask for questions. In the meantime, Dr. Campbell, you had a question. I want to call on you to ask it. So, Doctor, can you hear me? And your line open?
What's name?
Minnie.
Dr. Line is open.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay. Diane, before you started the poll, I had a question as to whether or not you can choose more than one.
Oh.
You see, and that's because my preference changes depending on what it is I'm trying to learn.
Okay. Well, that's a great point. I think, and I think everybody can hear us while you're working. You can multitask, write your answers, and listen to this discussion. It does change according to the task, and but this polling, I think we can only have one, accept one answer, and I guess assuming the people took this answer based on we choose one of these. Does that help you?
Well, yeah, it's a forced choice. It's just that it's okay. It's just that I can fit into a few categories. That's all.
Okay. Yes, and proving our other point about the validity and reliability of these, because some of these are in fact kind of, they're not so much forced choice, but they do bundle some things that overlap. So thanks for asking, and we'll put you back on mute.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to, so I'm assuming everybody has what they need, so I'll let you have just a little more minute. Again, the majority of this particular class is visual, and the next highest thing is they prefer to read, and the next highest preference is, I guess, looks like it's kinesthetic is right up there. I'm going to clear this so that I can get back to see who was going to give us some ideas about the lesson plan. So just a minute here. Okay, the poll question is on, and now I need to get back up to the participants so I would say now, if you would be so good as to raise your hand and let's see some ideas of how we would deal with these learners in this class who are, in fact, this is us. Okay, Tara, let me get a call on Tara first, and then Moon next. So let me see where we can go. I'm just scrolling here trying to find these, so hang with me.
Tara's at the bottom.
Okay, thanks, Nick. There, okay. So, Tara, you're unmuted and you're on.
Okay. I was thinking that because the majority are visual learners, but you also have to incorporate the rest of the class into the teaching, that using SimMan in the lab would be a way, because it kind of provides a visual of a patient, and then it incorporates all the other modes of learning for the other students.
Yeah. I'm glad that we have this Sim, because it really does take advantage of so many of these learning styles. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. So I'm going to, let's see, put you back on mute.
Okay.
And I'm going to call on and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Munir, you're on. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, and yes, you're saying it correctly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, tell us, give us some ideas of how to deal with this class.
Again, because we're looking at a largely visual population and knowing there's a smattering of other kinds of learners, something like a movie or a short clip that's followed by a discussion and would engage those people that need to look at things and reflect upon them, as well as those people that need to kind of actively start throwing out their ideas and start discussing that, to get everybody engaged and give them enough time there.
Okay, good idea. And taking advantage of several modalities and yet keeping everybody engaged. So, great. I'm going to put you back on mute.
Okay.
Oh, and Connie, I'm going to call on you next as soon as I get her. And, okay. Connie, hear us? Or can you?
I do, and I see that I'm unmuted. When you have groups like this that's largely visual, I think it adds fuel to the fire about the argument about PowerPoint. And there's a lot of vilification of PowerPoint, but I think if you have a group of people who are very visual, PowerPoint can still have a role, and maybe what we need to do is not vilify PowerPoint, but learn to use it in a much more visual way. And I think one easy way to do that is when textbooks now come with their own slides, the advantage is you can pick graphic representations or models. For example, I've taught a lot of pathophysiology classes or pharmacology classes. You can take those and put those up on the board while you discuss them. So, again, as Mira is saying, using modalities where you can get to a bunch of people, you can get with your auditory learners as well as your visual learners when you have that up. So I think sometimes when I see something like this, I think, well, PowerPoint really does have a role.
I agree, and what I thought what you said is that you're using the PowerPoints to, in fact, do something visual. Many of our PowerPoints, and I'll say I'm the first to be the offender, are words just to kind of keep things organized. And we need to do something, when you're just using it for words, you need to do something, the next step with it, because otherwise it's just content and we're not applying it. But when you have, the slides, graphics, and show relationships of parts and use that as a way of helping the students learn and apply, then that's great. So thanks for sharing that, and that's a great idea. And I'm going to put you back on mute, and we have next and Janet, and then I'm going to probably call quits. And
Diane, just jump in for a second. If you've already asked your question and gotten it answered, if you wouldn't mind, please putting your hands down.
Okay. Thank you, Nick, for that reminder. And have control over taking your hands down. And Mooney, you're one. I see that Catherine, you should be open. Is your line open?
Yes, I think it is.
It is. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Well, when I envisioned teaching and learning in the skills lab, for example, teaching how to take blood pressure and everything about hypertension, et cetera, and the best way to do that. And so I thought that you could incorporate visual, audio, reading, and kinesthetics entirely into the lesson plan by using online teaching for pre-class preparation, using slides, PowerPoint slides. You could have the students view a video beforehand. You could have them look at a case study and look at a clinical vignette or create one. You could also incorporate critical thinking questions into the PowerPoint presentation. During class, you could show a video or have them do it before class. Certainly during class, you'd engage in demonstration. Otherwise, you would have them perhaps listen to a tape. They could listen to the different sounds related to blood pressure readings. Of course, there'd be text readings, and then kinesthetically, they'd get experience and experientially by engaging in hands-on, touching with each other during class. So it would incorporate all these learning needs and styles.
Great. And what I heard in part of what you were saying is that you are creating some options for students. And as we, after you've taught the course once, twice, then you have a little bank of learning activities, and you can add to it in ways that would then appeal to some varied learning styles. But also you have bundle learning activities like you've described, then everybody has a chance to work in their preferred mode. So thanks for sharing that, and I'm putting you back on mute, and then we'll do one more, and this will be Dr. Mahoney. So let me get you online there.
Hi, everybody. I have
Hi.
Michelle Skyber and LaToya in my classroom. They're the MSN scholars.
Great.
So Michelle wants to make a comment.
Okay.
Hi, this is Mel.
Thanks. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you? So we were saying how you can use the videos in the classroom for both audio and the visual learners. And they're also extremely helpful when you have an online course to enhance the learning with the audio and the visual. You can post them on the Blackboard or eCampus, whatever system is being used. So that was the plan that we had come up with.
Okay, that's a great one, and it takes advantage of quite a few things. So thanks for sharing. And does anybody else at your site want to say anything? I think you probably have done a good job of representing it.
Yeah, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to put you back on mute then. Okay, so we'll call a halt to this. Let me kind of summarize here. One thing is now you will know your strong learning styles, even if they're not the only ones, and that, in fact, that they make a move from context to context. Also, most were talking about things that the teacher should do. And actually, I don't think anybody talked about exactly what the students could do, because we can empower the students. If they are an auditory learner and most of the information is presented visually or if it's presented in PowerPoints with people, in the classroom setting, they can make an audio tape of that. Podcasts, they can learn to make their own podcasts, or faculty can, too much effort, add a podcast or a voiceover in their PowerPoints. The students who prefer auditory. We did kinesthetic. The students, lots of times you'll just see them get up and move things around or use different colored pens and those kinds of things. So you can kind of understand why they're approaching that way. But I think you guys did a great job of showing the variety and the varied ways we need to design at least our lessons to accommodate these various needs. So learning styles, it's a lot of fun. We can have a whole course on any of this. So this is just a little highlight, a little taste. There's a lot of literature out on it. So if this is something that floats out, then go read more on it. I'm going to now move to our next topic, which is did the plan. Okay. Resources. How when we time we'll open up for questions, but because resources are resources at your school, you want to know what you have available. And one other little way that I'll go back here, we use that CLC temperament sorter, which is learning styles inventory, in our capstone course in the baccalaureate program. And we have those students are working with preceptors. We have the preceptor take it, and we have the student take it. And then they meet for 20 or 30 minutes and share back and forth what their learning styles preferences are. And it's amazing how much it helps both parties, because if there's vast differences between the two, then you can understand, why they are coming at solving a clinical problem or working in a learning situation, each coming from a different viewpoint or perspective. So it's a great way to understand where each person's coming from. And if you guys like this, you might even want to do it between the scholars and the mentors. So I'll leave that little thought with you. And again, some of these resources are pretty easy to find. Okay, now we'll move on. Now we're going to talk about generational differences, and this is something that's kind of gotten to be a hot topic in the last 5 years, because we now have and faculty in learning situations where we have a whole variety of different traditions. So we need to kind of look at that as well. So here's a simple definition. No generations are people who have, shared social, political, and a learning history within the generation. And usually a generation is about 15 to 25, or say 20 years. And I think back about, I want to share something with my grandchildren. They don't even know who John Kennedy was or where they were. I mean, they weren't even there when he died. So everybody has a different generations have different viewpoints. But here's one categorization of these. You've probably read other words or seen other ones, but this one seems to work pretty well. And this one is classified by traditionalists, baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials. And typically the traditionalists would be now, say, between age 65 and 75. And people from this generation tend to be loyal, working, faithful. Many of these people have worked at the same institution for a long time, and we can have a sense of when they're faithful to the organization, so they expect the organization to be faithful back to them, and we can see the issues with that now with people who have worked places a long time. Well, I'm going to have to change my phone. My battery's getting low, so hang on, everybody, just a minute while I do that.
Okay.
In the time, I think we have a question from Catherine Wilson. Are you able to mute her line?
I'm sorry, Nicholas.
A question from Catherine Manetti. Are you able to unmute her line, please?
Sure. Line's unmuted.
I'm glad that Diane took a moment's break because I had to take the hand off. How do I do that? How does my hand?
Just hand button again.
Just press again? On the bottom or where by my name?
By your name or on the bottom here of the participants window.
Yes, now
okay, now
there you go.
Thank you.
Question?
Yep.
Okay.
When I'm back here, I hope this is going to work. ID?
We can hear you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to, here we're talking about these different generations here. So we have the traditionalists, the baby boomers, and the baby boomers now, they're about between 50 and 65, and they grew up with a strong work ethic. They sometimes are described as being workaholics and kind of competitive we see it in the classroom too, that they're the ones that really are wanting to work hard and get the good grades. The X's are in their 30s to 50s, and they grew up wanting to have a better balance between work and family. So some of our students, you can see that they will draw the line about how much time they're going to be spending on school because they have so much other things that they're trying to balance too. Also, the Gen X's grew up with video games, so they are very comfortable with some of the technology. And then millennials are those that are under 30, and they, of course, grew up with the technology. They also grew up with working in teams and being much more of a collaborative learner. And I heard my colleagues say that even maybe we heard this from Pat Banner. She says to the students they like to learn in teams, but they like to take tests in teams. So you're used to collaborating and working together. So probably what we're looking at is how we can create an environment where all of these generations can work together and be happy. So how do you assess this? Usually just, you can kind of, sometimes you can eyeball, sometimes you can get course data to find out what generation the people are from. And then some of the things that we need to think about here in terms of working with generations is how to foster the communication and meet the needs of all these different generations in the classroom. So I'm going to move now. We're going to do this again. Some thoughts about understanding, again, the options, and keeping the communication lines open, and understanding your generation and how you act and interact with other generations. And I think part of this can be faculty student issue, because many of our faculty, as we know from stats, are in their 50s, so they're from a certain generation, and a lot of our students, if they're young, are from another generation. So we're looking at how we can harmonize both. So now I'm going to move here. We'll do another poll. So let me get the polling going again. And we're going to ask you to identify your generation here. And let's see, I'm going to...
The open poll button at the bottom right of the screen.
I don't...
Window open.
Okay, and let's see, I'm going to release it out here. Open the poll. Now, let's see, I need the next poll. There we go. Okay, poll's open. Everybody, raise hand if you don't see it, I guess. Okay, quite a few of you don't see it.
I don't see it either, Diane. Did you click on the open poll button?
I did open it, and it shows for me. Let me just a minute. Now I got to click these hands off.
You have poll 3 open.
Yeah, I have it. I just need to show it here. And let's see.
Let me take the ball back. Give me 1 second.
The reason. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing the poll, and I hope everybody else is as well.
Can I see the poll?
Yes. 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 This is not really.
Okay, so pick one. This is another forced choice, but I think it's probably clearer.
All right.
How old you are and what generation you're in. And Wilson, are you going to pass this back to me, or are you going to open it up?
As we're done with the poll, let me know, and I'll close it, push out the results, and I'll give you the ball back.
Okay, can you see how many have answered? Because I kind of called it when they were about 40.
No?
Yeah, I had 40 people responded. Shows how many? How many out of how many? There's about 46 people here.
It says 30 out of 44.
Okay, we'll give you one more minute. It's not hard. How old are you, and where do you fit?
I logged in twice, so I'm going to go ahead and close it. I think everyone did respond.
Okay, good. Okay, we'll show it now. Thank you, Wilson, for kicking in there. Okay, most of our Generation X looks like, and
I have control of the slides, Diane.
yeah, I do. Thank you so much. And we have then the millennials and the baby boomers, and then the traditionalists. So you are in this classroom. I'm going to leave the poll up here for just another minute and put the case up. So how are you going to handle this classroom? What kinds of things are you going to need to think about when you're planning and doing your curriculum work and in the classroom with people from different generations? And I'm going to call on you in just a minute here, and we'll ask for anybody else who could make a plan too. And I'm going to, in a minute, I'm going to clear this off so I can see the participants. So that everybody has the notion here that we have close to half of the class is from Generation X, and the amount is the millennials, and then we have a few baby boomers and a few traditionalists. Okay, I'm cleaning it off.
If I could make one quick comment, if you don't have a question, could you please put your hand down? That way I don't have to unmute your line.
And you want me to be I can do mute and unmute, Wilson, if you want me to. Okay. See, I think Maria was so I'll go with her. Okay.
And one of the things that really obviously you having to the plate here is using technology, because if we're looking at this group, we're seeing a lot of Gen X, baby boomers, Gen Y, and you need to be able to tie in that balance for work, the Gen X population, the fact that Gen Y is very driven by technology and likes collaboration, and the fact that baby boomers are really, they have grown up in a technologically savvy age, but they are very involved in wanting to learn more. So all these groups really are that we can use a lot of technology-driven tools, maybe asynchronous chats. Asynchronous chats are a great way of having those people that want to balance their work and life, getting to do things that they need to do, but also involving collaboration by having people work as groups online and getting some of those projects done within everybody's own technological comfort and also within their own work-life balance comfort.
Great, and what I heard in your answer, you're balancing the learning styles along with the generational needs. So good for you, and absolutely right. But if we hadn't known that this class was primarily millennials and Gen X's, it was different to us. And
yes.
Lots of times we are worried about having people who in our classes who haven't used technology, and we'll talk about it next when we talk about the computer. So. Great idea. Okay, next I'm going to Dr. Peretti, but muted you back. So let's see. I think Dr. Peretti was next. Let me come up here. Okay.
Hi. Yeah, this is Erin Cleary from SDU with Dr. Parietti.
Okay.
One of the suggestions that we had in our group here, I'm also here with Andrew, is a lot of teachers and educators utilize group exercises in classrooms, and they have a tendency to segregate themselves and sit with their friends. So we thought that utilizing group work in a way to make the groups multi-generational so that students can work in smaller groups with students from other generations and really expand upon life experiences and learn from each other, as opposed to just learning from the textbook or just learning from the perspective of the teacher would be helpful.
Okay, great. Stay on, because I'm going to ask you.
Andrew also wanted to add something too. He's here with me.
Okay. Yeah, I want to ask you both a question.
All right. Anything else that we thought of is that it's difficult sometimes as the educators to admit that we're not necessarily the expert in the conversation or the topic that we might actually be teaching. So to realize that in this especially if we have a multi-generational classroom, that the professor in that situation or the educator is really provide the resources. And that means having some kind of stimulating conversation where other members of the classroom environment have more experiences, that they're providing those experiences and really engaging in that intellectual conversation.
Andrew, you get an A+. So you're right at my heart here. You've got the role of the nurse educator down to a T. We are facilitators. We don't have to be the ones that are pouring out the information. So fabulous. And yes, we are in these rich classrooms that are varied with all these different styles. And next time we're going to talk about even more differences. We need to capitalize on them and make them work. But now my question back to you too, since the line's open. But if you wish to pass the line to somebody else who wants to answer it, I'll let you do that. But the question is this: when we're trying to mix people up in the class, and we always know that people like to sit with their friends, and so what's the strategy for getting people to mix up into different groups? Can the two of you come up with an idea for us?
Well, we haven't really discussed that, but I'm thinking along the lines of I actually when doing my undergrad, I was involved with residence life, and something that we very stressed was the old meeting that we had, or the initial class. We did a lot of team building activities and a lot of different ways to engage and get to know the other people in your class. And I think the biggest thing is to really break that ice and really, learn a lot about the different people in the class, so that you're not afraid to engage with them. So I think maybe as professors we need to, or as educators in that initial meeting, really try to engage the class in these icebreakers and have them interact with each other. But Erin wants to add to that.
Oh, that's a good idea, and part of this is, we need to be comfortable with each other before we can learn together, so having opportunities where people can get to know each other is really important, and particularly at the beginning of the course. So that's a great idea. Okay.
Another good option would be that once you're in nursing school for a little while, you sort of develop the specialty that you want to go into, whether you want to be a med-surg nurse, an emergency nurse, a pediatric nurse. So in that initial discussion that Andrew was talking about, if you're able to identify your goals as a nurse, and then maybe split the group up, the classes into groups like these, work with the med-surg nurses, work with the people who want to do in this specialty. This was some cohesiveness to the group, and it's not just a random smattering of different students. The cohesiveness with picking the specialty would be helpful in sort of breaking the ice further in the group and help everyone interact.
Yes, and there are your strategies to try to promote people who are going to, while they have different views and be from different generations, they have the commonality of being in the same, have the same interest area. And you could do it by clinical specialties, you could do it by research interests, you could do it by any number of things. So that's one way. Then I'll add just another, and particularly, in an online environment, sometimes if you're the teacher and you're wanting to mix things up, you can just do a random assignment, hope that you get a mix. If in the classroom, there's some interesting strategies where you get everybody lined up and you say everybody that has kids under 5 years old up here. Those of you that have west of the Mississippi, you line up here. Give them some kinds of things that they're not going to necessarily end up with their friends, and then have them count off into the number of groups that you need from there, so that you're not counting them and having them move all together so they end up with the people are their friends. So of the notion that we're trying to get people mixed up. We can be in group discussions where we can have the variety of different generations, different learning styles, different ages, different just all of that. So whatever you can do to randomize it so that people can learn from each other is fabulous. Okay. I'm going to mute guys. Thank you much for hanging in there. And Alessa is the next one, so I'm going to call Lisa. Find you here. There. Oh, let's see. Alessa, I don't have a phone showing for you. Do I?
I think you logged in with another group.
Okay.
If a group that she's with, can you raise your hand, whoever is representing the group?
The group.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I'm not with the group. I didn't use the ID number, so my little phone thing didn't show up.
Okay.
However, what I have to say has pretty much been said. The problem with the poll is that when you look at the group, you're also looking at differences in terms of pacing the class or pacing the learning setting. Some are going to be slower, some will be faster because of the technology. With that, if you can allow people to share differences as well as their unique skills and perspectives, you can probably find ground for keeping the class on pace. We talked about mixing up the students by having them count off at a certain number. I was glad that you also mentioned about changing the rotation of the randomized count, because students will catch on to that and find a sit so that they end up back with their friends.
We are creatures of habit, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. And is there anybody else that wants to say anything? Okay. I think we've probably done a pretty good job of taking a look at the generations and learning styles, and we really need to be mindful. I'll just emphasize it again because these things can get in the way of students learning if we're not paying attention to their needs. Well, this is probably a good time. I'm just going to ask you now. Raise your hand and we'll call on you. What kind of sources do you have for your faculty and students at your school that helps them deal with or identify their learning styles or their generational needs? How do you do learning needs assessments at your schools? And what sources do you have for the students and faculty? And I'm opening this up, and raise your hand if you wish to contribute. Okay. Kalimba. Tracy, I think it is. Let me find you. Yep, okay. Oh. Okay. Tracy, you're on.
Hi, Diane. How are you? I'm going to say that at Rutgers they have a lot of programs, especially for the online communities with the students. When you have the variety of age groups that are, computer and then those that aren't as savvy, they have a lot of programs that you can do online to learn how to use the different programs that the different faculty like to use for their lectures. As well as they have educational forums for the faculty themselves to learn how to use those online tools and those online programs.
Okay. Great. Great. And then I'm going to back on mute.
Okay.
And are you done?
Yep.
Okay. Because I'm going to call next on Lisa again.
Okay.
Wait, Lisa, you there? Yep.
I was going to say the last college that I was teaching in, I can say unfortunately that there weren't a lot of resources. The students who had learning needs or anything to facilitate the intergenerational communication, and it was a problem.
Okay. Well, yes, so we can see the spectrum of having two and having some, and I'll say one thing that we have done at our school on our campus is we've had workshops, both learning styles and on intergenerational. We had a consultant come in actually and do a work and help us understand these differences. And when you read the literature on generational learning, there's a whole bunch of strategies and lots more than we went into today. So there's little tips and tricks and things that you can do that make things work much more smoothly. And I gave in the resource list for this session, there's some quick references, but the literature is pretty rich here for nursing even. So yeah, the resources are a key. And I'd love for you to find out if you use the learning styles inventories that are part of an admissions package at your school, because if you are, right then and there, it's something that is worth pursuing, because the students should have that information, and you can help them then learn how to maximize their own learning styles preference. Okay, let's see, Connie, I'll see your hand is raised, so let me call on you. Sorted?
Thanks. My question has to do with, you were just talking about hiring a consultant, and some of these tools are not necessarily free, and our colleagues are talking about a community college where there were no resources. What is this in the literature that you just alluded to as far as evidence-based information shows when students do some of these tests that either their outcomes are better, their comfort level is higher, they learn more easily? What kind of evidence do we have that these tools improve outcomes?
Well, I don't know that the tools themselves improve the outcomes, but it's the use of their understanding of their either their racial needs or their learning preferences resources needs. And to the extent that the students understand it and can understand where they come from and where the teacher comes from and where their classmates come from, then either the student or faculty can do interventions or strategies, probably is more where we are at this point, to improve that. I think half of it is just understanding where the person themselves, the student is, and where others around them are, and what power they have to do something about it, either flex or to engage more what's preference.
I guess I'm wondering, in the case that you were talking about hiring a consultant, for who might be teaching in community colleges or in institutions where financial resources aren't so great to get some of these tools, what kind of arguments can we use with administration to justify that?
Okay. Well, the consultant came in to do a workshop for faculty to help us understand the educational needs of the faculty and the students. So, sources for that, actually the best way to get resources is to be able to demonstrate a need, some problem that you can identify and link, and some outcome that you could show. So I guess if you're trying to show that the faculty are, by virtue of having faculty development, are better able to work more successfully with their students in the classroom or work more successfully with each other in a faculty environment, then perhaps the investment in those resources are worth it. Sometimes if you pull together with several, additionally, you guys are getting some good networking opportunities here in New Jersey with, other schools that are part of this. Whenever something happens, maybe you could make it open to others. Let's see. Sometimes deans have discretionary money, and actually having a guest speaker, it doesn't take that much. Resources to look out of the School of Nursing, but at your community college or your university setting, and see if there's some things that are going there. Lots of campuses have learning resource centers, faculty development offices now, because we're really wanting to develop faculty for teaching. So sometimes poke over there and see what's there. Another department on your campus besides nursing has needs similar to yours, and two of you could, two schools could pull together and fund it. So does that give you some ideas of how to go forward?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay. Well, we'll keep moving here. Everybody doing okay? And Wilson, hanging in okay? Everybody can hear me and it's working right?
Yep, we're just fine. And I think we might have a question from Dr. Dermott.
I see that, and let me find her on the list, and I'll call on her.
You just a little bit low there, Diane.
Okay, thank you.
Are you now?
Remind me if I do. Let's see. So now, let me try again.
You will probably want to mute me again.
Thank you. Okay. Oh. Now let's see. Dr. McDermott. Got it. Okay, go ahead.
Diane, thank you for taking this call. At all, just before school started, our curriculum committee and the chairs of the two of the major departments brought someone in from the school education here at our university who was an expert in the content that you're going over today. And I'm looking at it and I thought, this is wonderful. And my thought is that there's faculty here are now aware of all of this content. You need faculty buy-in to make any of this work. And it was like a command performance. It was like you had to show, and that forces faculty to come in before school ever opens. And it didn't cost us any money for that. And then, there would have been conversations between among faculty to about what did have that would support the learning styles, and did we need something else? And we're a private university, so but that doesn't mean we have a lot of money. So, we have to be careful of the economics too. So I think as a resource, we had that resource, and it didn't cost us very much. So maybe for other schools where budget's low and they can't afford to, to hire a consultant, we didn't pay ours, and she was as good as any consultant. It was a full day workshop.
Wow.
It was wonderful.
Okay.
So it's more of a comment, I guess, than anything.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And, one key point that you made is, yes, we need to have a critical mass of faculty to kind of buy in, because if just one person is going to have the information and believe it, then we're not really getting the change that we need. So, having a critical mass is important. And also, to kind of look around and see if there are that have schools of education with your school of nursing. That's usually a good source. And actually, I think the person who came in was an alum, so I think she may have given a little discount for that. So there's
free is even better, but I'll
so
put a hand down. Thank you.
Just have to be creative, I think.
Right.
Oh, okay, I'm going to put you back on mute.
Good.
And a question from Maria.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nick. Let's see here. For you on my list. I know you're there. Okay.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I just wanted to include, too, at Seton Hall, we do use the ATI self-assessment inventory that they take in an Intro to Professional Nursing course. It does give the students, instructors, as well as their advisors, an understanding of their learning strategies.
And in their range, that's what my students working on. So I've kind of taken a look at that. But once the students have done that, it's easy for you faculty to follow up and kind of keep reading them to use that information as gained.
Right. When it really becomes helpful is when you do have a student that is having some difficulties, and as an advisor, you can go back to it and you can actually assist the student to look at where their strengths lie. Like if they, like you said, are they visual learners? Are they auditory learners? How do they, and then how you can incorporate that into some of their courses. And maybe not that their instructors are doing that, but then, empowering the students to do that kind of learning for themselves.
Yes. Empowering the students is where lots of this has to take place, because studying outside of class, too, so they need to know how they can facilitate their, additional studies.
Right.
Something else that I heard in your comment is where the way we approach learning, and we're advising the student, and the light bulb comes on and that says, oh, this is how they are approaching it, or if you ask them, how do you approach it, and we see there's differences, then we can shift into a different mode and be giving suggestions to them in a way that is going to be more helpful for them, and get them to draw instead of to help them from the framework that we're working from.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Anything else you
No, I'm
want?
good. Thanks. Thank
Pardon?
you. Thanks.
Welcome.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going back on mute. Okay. Are we ready to move ahead? Looks like I don't have any more hands raised. So I will kind of move a little bit quickly so we can save some time for questions and answers here at the end. And this next one, we've kind of gotten a little, I talked a little bit about this, but again, we need to have students who have some computer skills and information management skills, and we know from our generations that not everybody may have them, and we kind of need to take that into account. We can, assess these skills. I think probably can on everything that I've got there. Let me go back up to skills. Well, we now can add more skills to our list that we can want the student to have or expect that they have. We think we've got everybody almost to the point now where they know how to use learning management systems and search engines and so on, but we're moving more to helping the students learn how to link their computer technical skills with clinical information systems and some larger systems where they need to be using them in clinical practice. And then the assessments, there's lots of instruments, checklists, inventories. Wilson put that nice one up for this class. I don't know if you saw that on the opening screen. Some of you participated and some of you didn't. That's an easy way to do it inside of a learning management system, is to do a quick check of where the students are. In literature, there's many instruments for various specifics that you want to assess. And, we guess here with the issues, we need to be sure that everybody's up to speed with computer skills. And we need to worry still, I think, about this digital divide, particularly when we have students from the traditional and the baby boomers who maybe were not raised up with all the technology. So we'll kind of put those issues on the table, and there's lots of implications here for this. One thing is that we want to be sure that everybody has skills before the class starts, and you can see how we're giving practice time for everybody. And once we get one set of skills under our belt, there's always another following. So if I'm ended, we'll all know webinar skills better. So we need to be sure the faculty understand how to use the technology and use this technology that's really helping them to, the picture here, we're really making the push that we're integrating the use of technology for healthcare and using the healthcare health information technologies. So I think the things you're seeing in your sim labs and in your learning labs and in your clinical practice is pushing the students in that direction of being able to retrieve information and integrate it into clinical decision making. So lots of implications there for being sure that everybody's up to speed, and and I think somebody here just gave that example of the survey about their computer skills before the class starts. So all of that is to the good. And I'll probably just pose this as a general question, and if when we lines here in a minute, if there's some particular resources that you want to share. At our school, maybe across the nation, I've seen situations where the beginning students come in and spend time on campus with the computer technology to be sure that they know how to use it. And there's, classrooms for 30 to 50 students, and everybody gets on. There's a teacher, and everybody practices. With the management systems, we try to be sure that the course is open a couple of weeks before the semester starts so people can practice. Anyway, the bottom line here is that the students know how to use anything that has to do with computer technologies before they have to use it in a learning situation. So I think that's probably pretty straightforward. Here's a learning need of students in many of our classrooms. The current terminology here is we're calling this English as an additional language, because for many students it's not a second language. We used to call it English as a second language, but it's maybe the third or fourth language that they're using. And typically when we're thinking of the students for whom English is an additional language, they're using other languages in their daily life, and they're using English when they come to school, when they're reading the textbooks and so on. And there's, you can do some fine assessments here with some of the English's additional language tests and the TOEFL tests that we use with people needing to take the licensing exam. I think is one place where that's used. But in talking with the students, often you can tell that this is the language that they're most accustomed to using. And when we are working with the students in the classroom, we want to be sure that we understand what their needs are and that we are doing things that are helpful to the student. My experience with students with English and additional language has been, I had students from the Middle East in some of my graduate classes, and I am just in awe because their language is Arabic, which is the letters and everything is like English. So they are translating, they're struggling, they're making all these mental leaps here to understand and write and submit their papers. So we have to have enormous respect for the work they're doing. Other students were from Thailand, and again, their alphabet is different, and they're in the classroom with dictionaries, and when their classmates and myself included, when we're using slang and talking fast, it really makes it difficult for them to understand. So we want to be sure that we have support systems in place and that we're helping the students, not causing, making a situation worse for them. And here's these challenges. Challenge, particularly in the undergraduate program, is for the students when they're taking tests and when they're taking, worry about them too when they're taking the licensing exam, because some of the questions are the students into them from a cultural context, or sometimes they don't understand the words as we would be using them, probably even more so on our own paper and pencil tests in the classroom. Myself many times having to kind of use a different word so that it's not open to several interpretations. So there's things that you can do, simple things, how you write your test questions that can make things easier for the student. And I think it's the questions, and those of you who've taught psych before, you realize that many things that we in the dominant culture here in the United States we consider appropriate behavior may not work for other cultures, but yet that's the correct answer on the test and what we're teaching in the classroom, even though it doesn't fit with the norms from other cultures. So we kind of want to be clear about those things as well. And let me see, I'm going to probably stop here in a minute because I'm talking too much and I'd love to hear your experiences. Okay, so I'm going to, let's just open up here for questions or comments, because you got a lot of issues of the computer literacy and English as an additional language. So does anybody want to make a comment, share an experience, give us a tip? Lisa, go ahead, you're open. You have an open line. Do you hear me? Yes.
But one comment I wanted to make, English language, probably the only culture that uses the word right, as in right and left, to mean things like correct and okay and yes, and that something as simple as that can throw off so easily from other cultures where they have other languages.
You're right, and there's so many that are like that. The English language is very difficult to learn, and it's going to be really careful. And when we are face to face with the students, because you can see that they're nonverbal, you can tell when they're not understanding. But on the other hand,
look.
Yes, the look. On the other hand, in the online courses, the students will say they like them because when they have to post, they can nice, clear sentences and look up words and be more reflective and not have to be on the spot of trying to answer something in the classroom. So it works both ways. So thank you for that. And then see, I have some here, Lynn. I think it is. Let me. I got you. Oops. You're mute.
Hello.
Hi there. Go ahead.
Okay. I am a psych person, and there's some very interesting things that have happened in psych. But the biggest problem that I have with English as an additional language is not so much in the teaching, because a lot of ways to communicate to be understood, but it's in the writing. And in the writing, the reading of papers. And, it is so difficult for these students to learn to write the way that we think English should be written. And then when you throw on, like, APA on top of that to a new student, it seems to be very, very difficult for them to be able to do it.
Yes. And we probably need to think carefully about writing assignments when we are working in classrooms with students whom English is an additional language. And I have worked in environments where we have writing centers. They are an enormous help to these students. That's a fortunate situation. I'm not sure that everybody is on a campus where those, there's somebody who can be an assistant, can assist with writing. But another strategy that I've used is peer review of papers. And in some ways, it helps to the student who has good English skills to know have good English skills and to be able to help somebody and be able to spot when things aren't written as well as they should be. So that's a strategy that sometimes works.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? I may have talked more than you wanted me to, but what else? Okay, and then let me mute here for a minute. Oh, yeah, mute. Okay. Coming up. Here.
Hi. Actually, very similar to what Sheila said, but a little bit more to that, is that I think working with students, having been a student that, grew up in India and came here, I was very lucky that I was fairly fluent in English when I came here. The real sense of frustration that students have when they come here from a different country, especially in a country where they already spoke English, is when they get here, they're pretty confident. I was pretty confident. People understood me. I was very good at English. I always did well in my English classes, but people don't understand me as well as thought they should. I think that's an issue that a lot of foreign students face, because in their own countries, they may be the acknowledged experts in English, and then they come here, and all of a sudden, nobody here understands what they're saying or what they're writing, and it's a huge sense of stress and frustration. And I think they really do feel a burden because this is something they didn't expect to encounter, and now they're encountering it.
Yes. And what suggestions for how faculty could be helpful to students when this happens?
I think one of the big things that kind of you give the students opportunities other than speech if that's an issue. I know writing sometimes is an issue too, though, so it becomes a double-edged sword. I sometimes have told students that if they need to try and really engage in conversations with me in the class who is American, so that they can just talk to each other to get that feel for the ear of the language. That sometimes helps. And if there are any writing seminars, I think the writing issue is a whole different issue from the speaking issue. In terms of the speaking issue, they just have to be able to go out and have conversations with people. That's another thing. Some of them may not have a lot of resources here in terms of people that they can speak to. So set them up with a buddy who is American, who can engage in conversation, watching TV if that helps. Getting a ear for the language, listening to the radio. It's much more important to just keep hearing those sounds and starting to learn some of the colloquialisms that you may not have when you were growing up in wherever you were. So that's one of the suggestions that I would have in terms of that.
Okay, so kind of when you say that, it gave me an idea of something to do in the classroom is to break student to dyads. So there is dialogue back and forth, but there's not a bunch of bombarding of words on us, and giving the students an opportunity to speak. Another thing that I always struggle with when I am in the classroom and have students where English is an additional language for them is whether I should call on them or not. And what I've decided to do is I don't want to ignore them or make them feel like they're not a part of the class, but when I ask a question, I ask it when it's one and when the answer can be said in a few sentences so that they don't have to go on and on. And so that, you can kind of get a feel for being inclusive but not putting anybody on the spot. I'm going to head here. I have two more, and then we're going to close because I want to keep moving a little bit here. So Dr. Campbell's next, and let's see, Munira, let me get you back on mute, and we'll come up to Dr. Campbell. Okay, Dr. Campbell, you're on.
Okay, thanks. Along the lines of what Munira was saying, sometimes the issue is also the person who's listening doesn't listen carefully. When you have different languages with accents, and they may be speaking English at a pace much more quickly than we're accustomed to hearing, sometimes you have to adjust your listening and listen more carefully in order to understand what's being said. And sometimes it's necessary to remind the speaker, can you speak a little more slowly, because sometimes they don't realize that they're speaking at the pace that they would be speaking their native language. And English tends to be at, a slower pace for most English speakers. English speakers sometimes speak very quickly. But I think that Munira has a point in that, pairing the people from, who have another language with native speakers is a good idea most often. I think that as educators, we also need to be careful with whom we pair the speaker, so that what they're learning is how to enunciate and speak more clearly, as opposed to just mimicking the colloquialism that they may hear around them.
Yeah, good point. Thanks. I'm going to put back on mute. See, Catherine has a quick, and we'll move ahead here.
With regard to the peer review strategy you mentioned, how is the issue of academic integrity addressed?
What do you mean, academic integrity?
Well, you have students, first of all, could you just clarify what you mean by peer review?
Well, I, in my classes, always have students trade papers in a form and give each other feedback. And when I feel it necessary, I give them some criteria about which they are to give feedback. And students learn from each other powerfully by seeing another paper. And if they are learning where things are not written clearly, that's one student who is giving back about things that the paper's not written clearly, or following the APA, or following good English language structure. And the student who has as an additional language sees another student's paper, which presumably is in a better, more accurate form. Two people are learning when people share papers. And if you're worried about people, the academic integrity issue, myself, learning far outweighs that. And in my classrooms, I try to kind of have an open sense we're learning together, and we're helping each other. The goal is that we're, and I don't feel uncomfortable, and everybody knows. I mean, everybody is sharing the papers. So does this answer the question?
Well, it does. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to, Catherine, you're back on mute, and I'm going to kind of ahead because it looks like we should probably have about 10 minutes to wrap to be on time, and allow at least 5 minutes for some questions and so on. So I'm going to bow on all of this here. I think we've made these points, but if you haven't made them clear, here they are again. and you can kind of keep this and reflect back on these. There's I advise using pre-existing assessment inventories to the extent that they exist. Making them up yourself is a lot of work. I'm using anonymous inventory at the beginning of all my classes that were online, and most of your management systems have a way of doing it. And I asked a lot of questions, that got learning styles and their computer skills and so on. And then I always ask the question, what can a teacher in this class do to be most helpful? And that gave me a lot about the students and needed to do to help plan. Then if you gather information from students, even if it's just the API learning styles assessment, you need to address it and feed back to the students what it is that you're doing about it. So it's kind of a sense of following up. So if you're going to gather information, you got to do something with it. And if usually that can involve having a little bit of time in your class to be sure that they know how to manage their needs, whether it's for writing papers or for using the computer tools that are required in the course. So there are some tips. For faculty, we need to be sure that we're aware of our attitudes and where we're coming from, and we need even, I think it was, I can't remember who somebody, just even being aware of these things is a good first step. So we need to understand that, and we need to know what the resources are available for our students, and where, if we can't be of help, where we could send the students or grab some consultation. Okay, kind of out of the classroom, but up into the course design and thinking a little bit bigger picture. Be sure we have designed the course well enough that there's options. Not everybody has to be doing the same thing, even though most of the time in our class we operate that way. But we can have this for students to do the assignment one way or another. And yes, students have responsibility too. We're in this together. They're a big part of this learning team. So provide information to the students, and they too should know where the resources are. And these resources come within the course, within the classroom. I think we've probably highlighted all of these. In the school, we have most of our schools have some counselors. I was, again, lucky because I was working in a large school of nursing. We had our own Office of Diversity and Enrichment. That office provided peer tutoring for students in their coursework, provided enrichment activities so that people could understand different cultures, help the students, and so on. So see what's available in your school. Those of you that are first-time teachers, I would say, sure you know where all these resources are, and have a buddy who can help you access them. Campus may have some of these resources, so kind of poke around and see what's out there. And again, even beyond the campus is what's available in the community. So there may be many things that are available at your fingertips. And this is what I would say the takeaway messages here, the keys to success of understanding the students' learning needs is, we've all of this before, but here it is wrapped up in phrases. So I think now let's for questions and muddiest points. And I think it's working pretty well here to just have people raise their hand and me call on them. You're thinking of what else you want to discuss or have on the table, be ready to ask. And while thinking, I'm going to tell you about muddiest points. This is a classroom assessment technique. And there's two Tom Angelo and Patricia Cross, and they have about 100 of these quick, easy to do classroom assessment technique. We find out what the students need more information about and it's not clear, and what the faculty need to do to answer the questions that things aren't clear. And in the classroom, we distribute 3x5 index cards, or ask the student to take out a piece of scrap paper and write down their questions. And then they pass them forward, and then I take a look at them and read them and answer. And they kind of come in anonymously. Here, if we everybody raises their hand, you're not going to be anonymous, but nonetheless, I want to be sure that everything that you had hoped to get from this session has been addressed. So I'm looking for some hives here. Anybody have questions? Seen any hands? I'm going to first ask, can you still hear me? Nick and Wilson, am I still on?
Yes, I can hear you.
You're still dying.
Okay. So, well, when this happens in the classroom and nobody has any questions or things, I will assume then that we have clear waters. But there's a comment probably more than a question. We'll see. Dr. Campbell has something to say. So, of course.
Yeah, this is a comment more than a question. I don't know how many of you have seen the September-October issue of Nursing Education Perspectives, but one of the articles in it deals with assessment and grading practices in schools of nursing as part of that NL National Survey. And what's interesting is in the references, they refer to Angelo and Cross. However, when you go to the back of the issue where they have the essential nursing resources, and, this is, the journal is Nursing Education Perspectives, but there's nothing on education from the perspective of teaching and learning and nothing on teaching. So I think this is an issue I think that perhaps I ought to bring to the attention of the NLN. They have these resources here, and it's Nursing Education Perspectives, but there's nothing on nursing education in their resources. Just a
I'll go back to my issue and look at that again from a different view now that you've raised it. I think we both are probably saying that book by Angelo and Cross is a keeper.
It's an excellent book. I mean, it's 1993. But it has it has longevity. It's a very useful book to have.
Okay, and we're going to use some of the strategies in the outline. In here, I think we're going to come up with a one paper here in next session. So I'll try to work a few of those in here so that we can experience them because they're fabulous. Okay, any have comments or questions that they want to say at this point? If no, this brings up here. There's a post-session follow-up, and it's a discussion forum, and we'll ask for a challenge with about teaching students with varied learning needs, and then we'd like to see a way to meet that challenge and post and reply the November 13th. And I would say to keep adding to your portfolio information about how you are using these learner assessments and strategies. And the person who said that you were using the ATI inventory, that would be great to add to your portfolio. You have some first-hand experience of how to assess an instrument you're using and the pros and cons of using it and how you use it. So a little narrative and pop it in that portfolio. Okay. Let's see what we have here. Coming up soon, right on the heels of this one, we're going to continue this notion of assessing and understanding our students. We're going to talk about multicultural education because I'm pretty convinced that we need to have a good grounding in who our students are and how we can create an environment that is helpful to them in learning. So we're going to some guest speakers. One is a leader he's a past president of Men in Nursing, so we're going to get some gender diversity. We have somebody who's works in a student services office, and she works in Texas, so she has some experience with Hispanics. And then one of my colleagues actually here who's done a lot of community outreach and worked with African American students. So we'll have a lot of cultural diversity, and I will try to get all this information up here by the 18th or 20th of November, because I'm working with this panel and we want to get all of their information, and I'll get that up for you there, but it's going to be Friday, December 4th. I know Thanksgiving is in there, so we'll cut everybody a little bit of slack so we can enjoy our holidays. Okay, down to here, wrapping up. Any questions or comments you want to let me know? Send an email, send it to Nick or Wilson as well. We're going to meet Monday for a little debrief of this session, so if you have any comments, feedback about how the webinar went, let us know about that too. And I want to wrap up here by thanking profusely Wilson Lopez. He has been absolutely fabulous, giving plenty of time to rehearse and practice and to see you all. And Nick has been great, as you know. He's my coach and mentor here to kind of get all this organized and kind of help be sure that we have it all on track. So thanks to both of these, and thanks to you all. I myself feel like we've had a good session. I'll open up one more time here for the rest of you to add any last thoughts or questions or comments, or let us know.
Well, I'll take a moment and thank you, Diane, because I know it's not easy jumping in here with folks who only met one time, and I personally felt very welcomed in the discussion. So I appreciated the kind of the non-nurse perspective and all these good things. So, and our lines are open. So if they want to make any final comments, they can do so now.
Tech and Elaine, welcome. I don't know if you were there when I said how much I had enjoyed you at the LM, but I think
we're getting smiley faces.
Do I need to open Elaine's line?
No, we're open.
I just want to make a comment, and I'm really glad we're going to do multicultural for the next class, because I find in the New York metropolitan area that we have just, I look around the room, my classroom, my online classes, and there are just so many cultures that I almost, and I want to hear what other people say the next time, but I almost negate culture only because it can't, there's no minorities there. It's just everybody's a different culture. And I just don't know what to do with that. So I just to them as regular students. So
when I was planning this, somebody who has a child in the background, probably, can you put your phone on mute? That will help us. When I talked to our director of diversity, she said the bottom line is treat people with respect. So I think you have a point there. But there's some things that we need to learn from these experts. So I think you'll find it.
Okay. No, I'm open to learning. I just it's an area that I like to talk about, but I think maybe you're in different areas of the United States. You can talk about certain cultures that are there, but in the New York metropolitan, we just have too many cultures. So fact, yes, I'll go with that one.
We'll all learn, and I'll say from the Midwest, it's a lesson that we with our faculty on a lot, because we don't have a lot of diversity, generally speaking. So anyway, I think it's going to be worthwhile to have the 2 hours, and I'm happy that we're going to do it. Okay, let's see. Lisa, go ahead.
Yes, my comment regarding the diversity issue. It's not so much that there's a lot of diversity on the horizon when you look out into the classroom or into the population. It's looking at yourself, and when you're presenting things, are you presenting it to the culture that you're comfortable with, or are you presenting it in such a way that any culture can grasp it?
Yes. We'll try to get some of those points out, and we'll talk how to recognize when things aren't going well for the students. The teacher isn't as effective as maybe the teacher thinks he or she is. Well, we're going to have a good class. I just have a feeling. So speaking of nursing education perspectives, they have an issue every year about diversity, and I've referenced some of those articles for you. So I'll be posting up some references. Okay, last words or comments? I like to end my classes on time, but we can, anyone wants to stay after class, so to speak? Anything else?
I'm going to, I'm staying here to go to the
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. God
Bye, everybody.
Similar.
Bye on the webinar.
Thank you, Diane. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Diane. Bye.